Well, good morning, everybody. I'll say both names so I won't offend anybody. Haven and Campus Church, is that okay? Thank you for the invitation. I don't know if Elia had to twist anybody's arm that I come and speak here and give you my kind of story that I went through. But I hope that you and I can have a good time this morning. Before I want to share something with you that I must have this piece of paper for the last 8 or 9 years, because I remember we came here and I got it here from Marana Church. So some of you might have heard it, but there is a bit of humor in it, but I believe there is a lot of good stuff in it. So I hope as I go through it that you'll get something of it. A good set of rules to govern our lives by. All I need to know, I learned from Noah's Ark. Don't miss the boat. Remember that we are all in the same boat. Plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Stay fit. When you are 600 years old, someone may ask you to do something really big. Don't listen to critics. Just get on with the job that needs to be done. Build your future on a high ground. For safety's sake, travel in pairs. Speed isn't always an advantage. The snails were on board with cheetahs. When you are stressed, float a while. Remember, the Ark was built by amateurs, the Titanic by professionals. No matter the storm, when you are with God, there is always a rainbow waiting. Well, I hope as you think of it that I know one thing, there is a God that loves us, loves you, loves me, and loves everybody. Because the Bible says that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Before I go and start telling you, I have a couple of verses that I want to share with you. And I believe you'll be able to see them there, and I hope I can see them there, so we'll go with it, but that's all right. As I walk the street, doesn't matter where I am, I sometimes look at a person and I say, well, I wonder what his or her story is, because each one of us has a different story. And are we ready or? Okay, yeah, this is much better. I'm with you, and I'll watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised to you. Do you know who spoke those words? The Lord spoke, but he spoke to Jacob. Now, Jacob was the one that his mother got him in a bit of trouble. His mother wanted him to have something what was his brother's part. He didn't want a part of it, but mom says, no, I'll fix it for you. And ended so bad that Jacob had to run away from home. And he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord gave him a promise. Listen, he says, I'll be with you to the end. And I believe I have one more verse. And this one is said, the Lord appeared to us in the past, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with a loving kindness. Well, I don't know how old I was when I kind of, if you want to call it, fell in love with Jesus. I was about 6 or 7 years of age when my parents joined the Adventist church. And my mother, her unfortunate things, it was a bit, I would say, my fortune things, because my mother couldn't read or write. So when I started going to school and I was able to read, she used to ask me daily to help her remember the memory verse. Those days, just about everybody remembered the memory verse of Sabbath school lessons. And little did I realize, by helping her, I was memorizing myself. And the more I read, the more I memorized, the more I wanted to follow Jesus. Then I was about 16, 17, I decided no matter what, I will follow him all the way. Now, the country that I lived in, it wasn't a country like you live here. It was a communist country. They taught in schools that we came from monkeys and there was no God, and they didn't want you to believe in God, and yet at home, my father could read, he would read the Bible, the creation, and so I was getting, how would you say, two different things. You know, as a child, you're growing up, and what are you going to believe? But the more I read the Bible, the more I believed. But in that country where I was, when you reach about 18 till about 20, there was a rule that you had to go and serve in the army, which I was prepared to do it. It's your country, that's where I was born. But the only problem was with me, as far as if you go to the army, you have to do things 7 days a week, and Sabbath was something that I was not prepared to break the Sabbath. I kind of aggressive, well, I'll go, but that's it. But then I found out that the army said, no, if you don't do what we tell you, they would put me in jail. So I had two choices: to stay, do what they tell you, or break my conscience and don't do it. And if you don't do it, they'll jail you and then take you out and continue. But then the thought came to me, well, the second way was to leave the country, go out of it. And I was about, I believe, 18 when I started thinking. I said, maybe leaving the country might be the best for me. But to leave the country, you had to know someone who will get you across the border. And I didn't live that close to the border and the only two countries that, if you came across that time, was Austria and Italy. All the rest countries that were around former Yugoslavia, they don't call it anymore Yugoslavia, I still call it Yugoslavia. They were Hungary, they were communist, Romania communist, Poland, Czechoslovakia, you name it. It's, you know, so you don't go there. You usually go to different countries where there is no communism. But to get over, you had to find somebody who will take you over the border. And you had to be careful whom you tell that you want to go overseas, because you just didn't trust anybody. So there was a Bible worker. He used to come once or twice a year our way, and I asked him certain question, and I said, what do you think? What should I do? I said, I'm 18. I can get a call anytime. What should I do? Well, he said, well, it's your choice, but he said, I would stay faithful no matter what. But he said, have you thought of going overseas, leaving the country? Yes, I said, I did, but I don't know anybody that could lead me. Well, he said, I'm glad you spoke to me, because he said, I'm planning on going. He was married, he had a child. And he told me, he said, and there is another couple, a husband and wife and 2 children. He says, we are planning. And he says, I'm organized. He said, leave it with me, and when the time comes, I'll let you know. Sometimes went by, but I remember it was Saturday night in April. A guy that was going with them, he came with an army jeep. Now, the guy that was going with them, guess what? He was in the army, but no one knew. He didn't tell anybody. And of course, when he came to pick me, I knew that was it. So I said bye to my parents. In the beginning, they didn't want, especially my mother, she didn't want me to go. But at the end, they decided maybe the best thing is to go. So I said bye to my parents. I went with him, and we spent the night at his place, exactly at his mother-in-law place. Then the following day, we took our suitcases and we took a train to another village where we were going to meet the man that is going to show us to go overseas. So it was Sunday night, about 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. We went to the railway station and we met a man. We gave them our money, we paid him, and he put us in a freight car train. Not the passengers, but you know, the one where they carry the freight. And the car that we went in they had bales of hay. And he said, well, this is where you're going in. He opened the door for us. It was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, no one around, just him. And we went in. He closed the door, and we waited till the morning. Morning came. They moved the thing here and there, and I don't know if it's the following day, Monday or Tuesday, but finally they hooked us and we started going towards, well, we were told that we were on our way to Germany. We would go through Austria and then all the way to Germany, but we were not sure, we couldn't guarantee it, but that's what we were told. And then it was Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, we arrived at the last station on the Yugoslavian side. We knew because we kind of studied the map before we went, so we knew where we were every day. Although we were in the train, we were in one part of the carriage, you could see, you know, we had, there are windows there, it's a bit like shutters that they go one, so there is no glass, but you can see it through, the air comes through. So we saw the station and we said, well, this is it. This is the last station in our country. And I tell you, I was never so happy to see so much rain. That afternoon, it came down in buckets. Now the guys, they opened the door that we were in, but we were in one corner of the train. Sorry about that. And now they said it's just bale of hay. They closed the door, they sealed the door, and that was it. If it was a sunny day, I don't know if they would have come in, if they would have, we really don't know. So they closed it, they sealed it, within, I don't know, half an hour, 1 hour. We noticed it was a different locomotive that was pulling the train. Up to that point, it was a steam engine. But this one, to us, sounded like an electric. You know, you don't hear the engine, but you feel the pulling. And of course, it was Austrian engine that they took the train. And I tell you, once we left the station and started going through the tunnels and whatever, we were singing and screaming, and because we knew that that's it, we are out. Well, we came. The following day came out, we were just going and going. We didn't know, we were hoping we are on our way to Germany. But then I believe it was Tuesday morning that, by the way, we were 8 days in that train. 8 of us, about 8 days. And mind you, we had, I'm looking at the time, we had plenty to eat, plenty of water for a while, so, and that when we came to this station, we didn't know if this is where we were going to be unloaded or not, but once they opened, we knew that that was it. And the two guys came, they came in and they started taking bales out, and They started taking him from the other side of the train. And 8 of us, 5 adults and 3 children, well, we stood up and he said, well, what do we do here? Well, we said, well, that's it. There is no Germany. As far as we knew, it was Austria. I guess this is it for us. And as they were working, we were still waiting there. One of the guy, he had like a hook that you pull the bale out. He went to get a bale from the top, and he kind of looked up, and he saw us for the first time. And then second time, he kind of very, very slowly, he kind of raised his head and looked, and he couldn't, and then he shook his head. He couldn't believe it, because there were 8 of us looking at him. Then he said something to his guy, like something in German, look up or whatever. When the guys saw it, they jumped out, and before we knew it, the people were there, the police were there, 8 of us came out, and the person that was getting the hay, he had a sawmill. So he had horses, and he was he was cutting boards, doing things with wood and I don't know. They gave us breakfast. All we wanted just some bit of water, and luckily they made us some nice soup. I used to tell that's the best soup I ever ate that I can remember. And after that, police came and police took over. 8 of us. And 3 of us, they asked a few questions, and they took us in the police station, but the 2 ladies and the children, they took them to the hospital. We slept in the police cells, they slept in the hospital. In the morning, they got us together again and told us through the interpreter they are taking us someplace, and to a bigger city or whatever. I can't remember if they mentioned the name. Well, the following day we came to a big city, and I found, probably if you go to Austria or you have been there, you have heard of a city named Salzburg, a beautiful city. Of course, again, 3 of us, they put us in jail, and the ladies, they were separate from us. They were taking care of them. And we didn't know. They put us in a room, there were about 20, 25 people from Poland, from Hungary, from Romania, from Yugoslavia, you name it, everybody was there. And we were asking, well, how long have you been here? Some of them were 1 week, 2 weeks, some of them were a month. And we said, what's the situation? How? Well, they said, they'll give you, if you qualify, they'll give you papers with about in a month. So we thought, well, that's not too bad. And we thought, well, if we're going to stay in this room, let's get some books. I took, as far as I remember, I took 3 books with me. Sorry, I took my Bible. I took a Great Controversy book, and I believe it was Desire of Ages, the 3rd book that I took with me in my own language. And I thought, well, we'll read it and we'll, And after we did that, I don't know, half an hour, 1 hour later, a guard comes in and signals to 3 of us and kind of calls us to come out. We came out, and he led us few doors from that big room, and he showed us a nice room with 3 beds, toilet, and shower, just for 3 of us. Now, we were not any special. We didn't know the reason. I didn't have a clue. We were happy to stay in the big room. That was fine, but that's what he did. Well, we spent 2 nights there. Friday came, and after our breakfast, about 10 o'clock in the morning, the same 2 guards, they come, they open the door, and they signal to us that we should come out, 3 of us. They took us to the office, they gave us our luggage and started leading us downstairs in the courtyard of the police station. We didn't know where we were going, we didn't know what was happening. And as we walked, three of us, we walked down, there were three guys in the middle, well-dressed three men. We didn't know who they were, and when we came there, one of them spoke in German, and then the other one spoke in my own language, in Yugoslavian language, and he said something like this. I still remember the minister's name. I forgot his first name, but the family name was Schnetziger. And he said, I'm a minister of a Seventh-day Adventist church here in Salzburg. And he says, I have come to take you out of jail. And he said, I gave a promise to police people, and he said that you'll stay with me and they'll leave you alone. I never knew the man, I never knew the name, I never knew that there was a Seventh-day Adventist church in Salzburg, but what happened, what we didn't know was that when we came out of that train and thing, we were a big news in Austria, in the paper, in radio, but I didn't have a clue. So he must have read it, and of course they asked us what religion you were, and we told them we were Seventh-day Adventists. Well, when he saw that, he said, I'm going to get these people out. So he went to the police and he gave his guarantee for us. And the church, he lived right above the church. There were two units, two-bedroom units. But before we went there, two guys said, listen, he said, we have two wives and children. He said, where are they? He said, don't worry. He said, they are there already. You see, he took them there before even he took us. So they were in the church there. And then it took about a month, 25 days. We got our papers, and then we moved out of the church, and we went, but I have to tell you this. So when he took us out, he gave us his card, and he wrote in the back in German, just in case, and he said something like this: as long as you stay in the city of Salzburg, you are safe. No one will bother you. If you go out and police check you, then you might be in trouble. But he said, but there is a card. He said, my name is here, my number is here, and you just show the policeman the card, and he'll know who you are and who I am and so on. But we walked the streets of Salzburg up and down. There are some beautiful churches in Salzburg, and we used to go and see this church and that church and everything. And of course, once we got a paper, we moved. We were in the migrants area where all the migrants are there. And then we have to go and register for different countries. And number one on my list, and I think on theirs, was Canada. I wanted to go to Canada. But we had to put our names to few countries. Just in case one refuses you, then you can go to the second. But my understanding was you never told the other country that you were registered for somebody else. You would say, well, I'm here and I want to go there. So, but the Canada was the one that I wanted to go. And, well, there came time, took me about a year. I'm not going to go through for some reason or whatever, but took me a year. And I was on my way to Canada. I arrived in Canada. And I was about 2 or 3 days in Montreal. By the way, I went by a boat from Germany, from Bremerhaven, all the way to Quebec province, to Quebec City, and then to Montreal. But a friend that I went from Yugoslavia out, he was already in Toronto area, so I kind of followed him. So I was in Montreal about 2 or 3 days. Then I took a train and I went to Toronto. And this guy, he met me. And two guys that I never met. I never saw them. There were two brothers, George and Peter. Peter was little my age. He might have been 1 year older or younger, I don't know, but my age. And the guy that I went, by the way, the guy that I went, you might not believe it, I'm not making it up, but his name was Novak. You know, the tennis player, that's Novak Djokovic, but there is no relations there, but I'm just telling you. So there are plenty of those names, Novak, yeah. So his name was Novak. And so we met at the train station. The George was driving the car, and we went in, and Peter started talking to me. He said, "What are you planning to do now?" Well, I said, "I would like to, you know, get around and get a job." And well, he said, "Where do you want to work?" Well, I said, "I have some papers from Canadian Embassy back from Vienna, because I didn't have a trade. I didn't have anything. I went to school, and then after school, I was just working. We had a small farm, and that's where I was working." Well, I said, "That's all I can do." And Canadian Embassy told me, "Well, you can go there, and the farmers will give you a job." So Peter said to me, he said, "No," he says, "you don't have to go there." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "This is a different country than the country that you come from," which he knew. See, back in old Yugoslavia, if a government gives you a job, you better take it. If you don't, well, then the next job, you look for it yourself. They won't bother you. But he said, "Here," he said, "you're free." He said, you can go and do anything you want. Besides, he said, "I got you a job anyway." And I said, "To do what?" Because we never met. Well, he said, "To be a tailor cutter." I said, what in the world is a tailor cutter or cutter tailor? He said, "You know what a tailor is?" I said, "Yes." He sews the suits. He said, "Yeah." Well, this guy said, "You just cut. You don't make them. You just cut them." I said, "That's not bad." But I said, "Listen, I can't speak English. I didn't know a word of English." He said, "Don't worry," he says, "everything is fixed for you." Well, I said, "What did you do?" Well, he said, "I heard that you were coming," and I asked the foreman, the manager, "Listen," he said, "there is a 20-year-old guy coming. Would you give him a job?" I said, "Sure." And I tell you, that was in the 60s. And that's how it used to be. You can get a job just about any place. And my heart goes to the young people these days. You know, it's harder, believe me. And I said, "Well, what about English?" He said, "Don't worry." He said, I'll explain that tomorrow to you." So when he said that to me, I said, when could I start? That was Sunday night. He says, "You can come with me tomorrow." That was Monday. Well, I went the following day, and the place where he was, in the room that he was, of course, he was a cutter, but the system that used to be, just imagine what I have here. It's about 6 meters long and about 2 meters wide, all right? So I'm on this side, and Peter is on the other side. So the foreman and him, they decided that Peter would work there and I'll work here. And if I have any questions, I'll ask Peter, and Peter will ask the foreman, and the foreman, do you know what I mean? Well, how can I complain? I said, "Lord, thank you again. It's just terrific." And I went, and roughly there in that, they gave you about 3 months. If you like it, if you're happy, and if they're happy with you. And I think it was about 3 months. Foreman comes and tells Peter, "Don't worry, Paul, so you have a job. If you want to stay, jobs is yours." Well, again, who can complain? So Peter and I, we worked, and of course, I was learning English and getting better at it. Then about 6 months' time, they asked me if I wanted to get a little better than just plain cutting, which we call made to measure. They teach you with a tape how to measure and certain things, because each one of us is a different size. Our sleeve, arms are different, so you got to measure it, and you have to know what you're doing. So they taught me that, and I passed that test, and everything was fine. But as I was living and doing things, somehow my Christian life I wasn't happy. And what I did, I advise all of you young people, don't do it. But what I did, I left the church. I walked away, but I have to tell you this, I didn't walk away from Jesus, and I believe he never walked away from me. And I just didn't want to go to church anymore. And down the road, I don't know how long, few months, I can't remember, I found a place with a Yugoslavian lady that I was renting. And I'm not getting into how I got there, but I just want, because of the time and everything. So I was there with her, I don't know, about 2-3 weeks. And two guys, one Friday I was coming home, and two guys from the former church, we met at her home. We said hi to each other and things like that. And when I went in, I said, what did these two guys, what? Oh, she said they have invited me to go to their church. So I said to her, maybe I shouldn't have, but I said to her, if I were you, I wouldn't go there. It's trouble. But I said to her, listen, there is another church we call it back in Hamilton, on the mountain. It's not a mountain, but we call it mountain. He says, I haven't been there, but I'll take you. If you want to go to church, I'll take you there. And that's exactly what I did. She said, yes, I'll go. And I took her there, and I went to church, but I didn't want to be there, okay? So I would bring her, let her go in on her own, and I would kind of sit as far back as I could find a seat. And usually after the last hymn was sang, I would kind of in the middle, I would get up, and because I didn't want to talk to the minister, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just, I want. So a few weeks went like that, and I remember one Sabbath we were going home, I was driving her home, and she said to me something like this. She said, I have invited minister to give me Bible studies. Oh, I said, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. He sounds like a very nice minister, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy everything. Then she kind of gave me, you know how when you give a kind of naughty smile, she looked at me and she said, yes, she said, but I told him you will be translating for me. Now my English was bad, but her English, I tell you. I said to her, I said, that's all right, I'll translate for you, no problem there. And of course, minister came, we met each other, kind of first time, but I wanted to keep my distance. I didn't want nothing to do with it. And that went for a while, and then one evening after everything, he said to me, he said, can I ask you something? I said, yes. He says, where do you get your knowledge through the Bible? Matthew, Mark, Genesis, So then I told him, I said, listen, I went to the Adventist church, but I said I left. I walked out. He said, listen, if I can do anything for you, give me a call. And I thought, well, I'll think about it. He kept on coming, but the more I saw of him, well, I thought, well, I will put the questions that I have. I'll ask him and see what he comes up with. That's what I did. And every question that I had, doesn't matter, from the Bible, from the spirit of prophecy, he gave me the answer. He says, it's not me. You read it. You see it. So the lady and her daughter, they were studying. And then came time about 2 or 3 weeks before he was going to have a baptismal with baptize some people, some other people, and he told the ladies, he said, I'm having, baptism in about 3 weeks' time, and I think you're ready. If you want, I'll baptize you. And then he turned to me and he said, listen, he said, and I want you with me too. He says, if you want to be baptized, I'll baptize you, or he says, I'll take you on the profession of faith. Well, he was the nicest man that I ever met. Mind you, I've been working with some different ministers, which is just as nice, but at that time, as far as I was concerned, he was the person that I needed. He was just the right person at the right place. And of course, I joined the church, and I've been with the church ever since. And I hope I stay with the church for the rest of my life. Well, what can you say? I had a good time in Canada, and in the same church, you might not believe it, but I met Elias' mother there. And she was born in Iraq. I was born in Yugoslavia, and we met in Canada. If you planned that, I don't think you could make it, but just one of those things. And of course, we decided to come to Australia. And at the end of 1978, in December 78, we arrived to Sydney, Australia, and we've been here ever since. And at the end of 2004, again in December 2004, my wife and I, we came to Central Coast. We bought a home at Green Point, and some of you were there, and I'm sure you'll come again. And we've been going to Arena Church, and of course, Ilya has been coming here. Her and I, we used to come from time here, time here and from time to time, and I still do come. And few days ago, I think Eli asked me a question, which I was a bit surprised. I don't know, Mel, if you remember. He said, why did you come from Canada to Australia? Do you remember when he said something like this? Well, I said, we came here, and I said, if I hadn't come here, I said, you wouldn't be here asking me that question. But I don't think he understood that. Now, my story is this. I believe that the Lord had put the right people at the right place for where I had to be. I don't think I was lucky. I don't think I was fortunate. I really believed that the Lord was all the way with me in Austria, in that train, with that minister that I never knew. He never knew me. With the immigration people, I believe that the Lord had his hand all the way through. And I believe that he still does. Well, more or less, that's the story as far as I'm concerned. Of the time, I have not said certain things, but most of it, that's exactly what it is. So I hope, and I'll tell you this, and I tell this to young people, you have many more temptations than I ever had when I was your age. When I was in the village, we didn't have a radio, we didn't have a television, I didn't have a mobile phone, I didn't have a phone at all. But you guys, you have so much here, you name it, you have it, and there is so much. So I hope you pray, and I wish that God will bless you. And if you think that sometimes it is hard, well, tell it to Jesus, and he will carry you through. And before I finish, I want to share this with you, and I hope you get something out. I think this is for everybody. It doesn't matter how old or how young. and says something like this, and I believe this is a retired person talking. Today is the oldest you have ever been, yet it's the youngest you'll ever be. So as we go, if you can, trust Jesus, and he will carry you through. Thank you.